let's talk about the Seahawks. The Seahawks are finally, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but finally looking for a head coach. And I mean that by it's been a really long time since the Seahawks had to go get a new head coach. And that's exactly what we're going to have to do this off season. And it's tough. Now, I have a list of the candidates that are being reported and kind of want to go through them and what I actually think is going to happen here. Before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the whole entire situation. Pete Carroll gone, what this means. And I want to say a couple things. I think the most important thing we can say here is, in general, you got someone like John Schneider in his press conference today was really, really interesting. And I say that for a reason. And that reason is simply he said that he's going to be taking care of all football operations and giving all the personnel decisions. Like he's going to be taking care of that fully himself. And when I heard that, I was a little bit intrigued by that. That means he is looking to kind of maintain that power where he's the say all end all as far as the personnel decisions, which I know a lot of GMs are, but that rules out ever going for someone like a Harbaugh, a Bill Belichick, a Mike Tomlin in the future, any one of those head coaches who you'd think would want to give and not give want to give the personnel decisions themselves. So with that, I think that means a couple things. I think that means this organization is going to probably end up going with someone young, and that doesn't necessarily always work out. I mean, I know McVay's worked out. I know there's a couple other coaches who have worked out, but you can see the Nick Sirianni's, who's now being rumored to be going to maybe go out from Philadelphia. So it doesn't mean every time you go for a young head coach necessarily means that the young head coach is going to be one that works out, the one that's going to, lead you to the promised land or anything like that. So that's really important to keep in mind. Now, is that for sure? Absolutely not. We don't really know if that is the case, but that is what I'm thinking. We're going to be going with a young head coach. So let's go through the head coaches, and keep in mind, I also think that means we are the Seattle Seahawks organization, and I want to make this really clear here. And I think that means we're ready to, when we're going to make a coaching hire, it's going to be innovative. It's going to be splashy. Pete Carroll was like against the trend, right? He failed in the NFL and then came to college and did so well, and everyone thought he couldn't be a NFL head coach, and instead he became one of the best NFL head coaches of his generation. So I would expect us to go with someone a little bit against the grains. Now there's the obvious. To start off with the defensive candidates, and the first most obvious one is Dan Quinn. Not going to happen. I'm going to call it from now. I don't want it to happen, so maybe this is more of a hopeful I don't want it to happen thing than rather than it won't. But in general, Dan Quinn just seems like a cookie cutter option, and I don't think that's what the Seahawks are going to do. Plus, his defense has really struggled as of bit. The Carolina Panthers, Egirio Evero, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This probably won't get fans too excited, but you have to remember their defense, despite being bad, was a fantastic pass defense this year. We have a lot of obviously secondary talent, so you just wonder what he would be able to do with secondary talent. Maybe he would be a good hire. I also don't think we're going to hire him. Obviously, when I'm making a prediction, I only think there's one person we're going to hire, but I have two favorites. Los Angeles Rams, Raheem Morris. Another guy, division guy. We've seen us kind of go pick Shane Waldron, for example. We picked off of the Sean McVay coaching tree. If we're going to go get someone from Sean McVay's coaching tree, I'd rather go get an offensive guy personally. And I think that's where the NFL's going anyways, to get an offensive guy. I really want us to do that, and I'll get to that when we get to the offensive coordinators. And the Las Vegas Raiders, Patrick Graham. We said we're going to interview another guy. I do not think he's going to get the job, and I would be lying to you if I knew much about him. Now, what I think we need to do is go get an offensive guy, pair him with a young quarterback, and have those two married at the helm, and hopefully we strike gold. I think that's a great way to build an organization. I know the Chiefs, for example, Reed is married to Mahomes. He's not young, but I do like when you have a young head coach or an offensive-minded head coach, either one, married to a quarterback young. Just a great way to develop them, if the quarterback and head coach are good, obviously. So these are the options. You got the New York Giants, Mike Kafka, who worked under Brian Dable, who is a good offensive mind, but that does not move the needle for me. I don't think that's a necessarily a move I would be absolutely thrilled about. You got the Houston Texans, Bobby Slowick. You've seen what he's done with a young quarterback in CJ Stroud. That does get me a little bit excited. But I do wonder if he's ready to actually leave the Texans after 1 year and become a head coach. I just don't know. He reminds me of my number one target on this list, who decided to stay 1 extra year, even though he had a lot of hype about becoming a head coach. My 2 favorites are Miami Dolphins' Frank Smith. He's my second choice out of this list. I like Mike McDaniel. I think he's a great... Sorry, there's one defensive guy I forgot to mention. Let's just go back to that before I get to my 2 favorites. Mike McDonald from the Baltimore Ravens, who is... like, his interviews seem great. He seems great. Harbaugh coaching tree. But I just don't want to go with a defensive coach. But if we do go with a defensive coach, that's who I'd go with. So let's go back to the Dolphins. Frank Smith, Mike McDaniel coaching tree, which is Sean McVay's coaching tree. Frank Smith, I think, would be pretty cool because I've seen the Dolphins, and what they're doing in general is very innovative, and I would love to see some innovation here for the Seattle Seahawks. So, I mean, that would just be pretty cool. But my favorite, and I think everyone would probably, not everyone, but a lot of people would agree, be Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions. Innovative, fun, transformed Jared Goff's career. Seems like a great hire across all boards. Now, will that prove to be the truth when we hire him? Will he become a Hall of Fame head coach? Who knows? This is the NFL. But I just feel like that would be, to me, a move that would move the needle, get people excited, bring up an offensive guy, and Seahawks fans would be really happy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the Sports on Tap Seattle. We have separated our YouTube channels to Seattle on Tap is Seahawks, Mariners on Tap, Mariners, and Huskies on Tap, Washington Huskies. But it's just me, Sammy, my brother, as you guys all know. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Who do you want to see the Seahawks hire as their head coach? And we'll see you guys next time.